But you can kind of start to see what this thing is going to look like. I pulled the stacks out so this be a little bit taller, and you can start to see the general shape of the roll cage. Well, I'm going to get ready to get the pump in here. Just kind of temporarily placed it, and then we can put the big 500 in here. So I'm going to just clean this up, drill and tap these 5/16, and that's about it. I'm probably only going to bolt in for the corners just to hold the pump in here, get everything situated. Then I can rig everything with it in, and we'll get going on that. All right, got the pump in. One other thing I'm gonna do is weld the corners. I never got these welded quite yet. I usually TIG these things. So I just gotta hit a little TIG weld there, and an outside edge seam down there. And the pump is in. Once I get that done, this, honestly, there hasn't really been a reason to do this, and I gotta reset up my TIG welder to do that. But as soon as I'm done with that, this hole is completely welded. I got to grind the welds up on the bow, flip it over, do the strakes. But I'm going to get everything done on the inside of this boat right now that we've got the 500 sitting here. So I'm going to TIG those corners up really quick, clean it out one more last time, and then we're going to get this motor in the boat, start placing it, and start messing around with that. Get to work on the boat making the engine fit down in the cradle. I alluded to this in the middle of the other video where we're sitting pretty good. Let me see if I can get this photo. We're sitting pretty good here in the front. It sits down really nice between the engine bears. It was a snug fit, but back here it's just a little bit tight, and the engine won't sit down in there. So I have got to figure a way to trim that. And what I'm going to do is take the engine mounts off of this thing and trim just a little bit of width off of this. This doesn't really give much strength anyway because all the mounts are down through the top. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to lift the motor out. I'm going to take the stacks out. I might take the headers off, but that's kind of my lifting point right now. And so I don't damage or ding those things up. So I'm going to take those off, get those ready for anodization, and get this motor so it sits down, then we can start fitting the roll cage in the seats. Let's go. All right, well, I got the motor back lifted out. I kind of came up with a better lifting way. I took the stacks off. I put some towels over the valve covers, and I feel much more comfortable with it hanging vicariously over my head. So I feel a lot better about that. So got it out. I got the engine plate, the rear plate off that kind of runs into the side rails. I'll show you how that works here in a second. And then I want to talk really quick about the reverse mount starter. So put a tiny little gear on the flex plate mount there off the crankshaft. And that does quite a few things actually. It reduces your rotating mass because you got a lot smaller, lighter gear on there. And then it also allows you to slide your pump back or your engine back over your pump housing if you desire. The old big flex plates, they hit right here, so you're kind of limited on how far back you can go. So here's the rear mount, and this is what I'm dealing with. This is like one piece. You can see it slides down up there, but like right back here, it's just a tiny bit too wide. So I'm gonna have to figure a way to just take a little bit of material off these, and we'll get this thing fitting in here. All right, well, I got the engine mount to fit. I did a little trimming here and there, did a little of a hammer manipulation on the rails just to get them, it's not I don't know, not bending the things, but just kind of dimpling them inwards so they would clear. And another issue that I found was the oil pump was having issues clearing, so I had to do a little bit of taking out of the corner of the engine mount there. But I am super stoked to see that this thing is sitting down in here perfectly now. It drops right in, and it's just a gentle squeeze, and then it's flipping perfect. So I'm super excited about that. Now, so I will call the engine rails not fitting perfectly a small setback. Probably took me, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours to get them to fit in there perfectly. But I just had a major victory that was I was kind of like, oh God, here we go. Some of these things can kind of set you back for days, weeks if you're waiting to get stuff machined. And my major victory is my old drive shaft flipping perfectly. And I was worried about the length of it. The place I get these is called Northwest Drivelines. And this is about as short as I can get them to get these things to me. So there's not a lot of space left in there. I could kind of cut a little bit out there to get this thing to collapse. But this is as collapsed as it can get right now. And it sits perfectly. I don't know if you're gonna see without any light down there, but one of the fuel or the oil lines is just right. It's not even touching. I got a fingernails clearance with the pump. So that is all awesome. And you can see with having this smaller ring gear on here, this is actually slid back over top of the pump by a good solid 1 to 2 inches. So that gets your center of your weight back. It makes everything more compact in the boat. It reduces your rotating mass and everything else. So I am super stoked about the angle on the driveline, or lack of, both kind of horizontally, vertically. It is flipping nice. So there's one victory, the driveline. Now, here's another one I just did. So now that I know exactly where this engine is going to sit, until I know exactly where it's going to be with the driveline, I can't really move anything forward because everything goes off that location. So pulled out my old bent hoops for my roll cage, and lo and behold, look how much clearance I have. It's just laying in here, obviously, but I have about 3/4 of an inch clearance on the headers. So that is another major win. So it's not it's a huge win. And those are all dimensions that I sent to Brad that's why he did that major mock-up. So kudos to him. He nailed it. Everything was flipping perfect. So I'm super excited because that is, you can see the roll cage. Trying to hold this thing with my hand, but when you pop up we're right there. It's right touching. We have about a 1/2 inch clearance. So I'm pretty stoked to get going on the cage. That can be timely. The only other issue I'm going to have with that is this magneto. Your crossbar that your harness is attached to, and also your seats are bolted to, that usually runs right across in front of the cylinder head. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to put the tube here or back in there. I think I talked about that in last video. But so this is the kind of thing that we got to get going on and get sorted out. But here we go. I'm going to get to go into work on getting the roll cage tacked up, get the general shape of it, and then start working on the seats to fit. I am by no stretch of the imagination an expert on roll cage building or construction, but I have built a fair amount of them. So I've learned a couple tips and techniques. So we got the 2 main hoops. You can see the shape of those. And the very first thing that I do is I know the angles of each one of these. And it is kind of a bear without having a huge steel top bench to tack these into place. So I marked out the center marks of these, and the very first thing I'm gonna do is put the single bar across these two, because it's a pretty simple bar. It's there's not a whole lot to it other than, you know, two cuts in the each end of it. But one of the tools that I bought a couple of years ago that really changed my roll cage making was just a tubing notcher. This is a JD squared. And all you do is you fit your tubing in there, tighten this thing down, locks it in, and then you got this big bearing here for the shaft, and then you put your hole saw in there and you get perfect cuts. So I just cut this one, and something I learned from watching somebody else's channel, which I love about YouTube, is that you don't want to just weld. There's like no material in there. So I'm gonna just hit this up with a little paddle wheel and kind of make that, just kind of hit these with a sander before I do any welding, and then we'll talk about how I'm going to match that on the other side. Well, if you can see that, what that did, that just made a nice lip right there, so we can get some good strong weld all the way around that. But that was a perfect tip. Loved watching YouTube to learn little things like that. And here we go. So now I got to match that on the other side. So I'll show you how I do that. All right, this might get a little tricky with the camera and up close, but what I use is the good old eyeball. Your eyeball sees any variations way better than you think it does. So way better than honestly putting an angle finder or anything in like that. But so what I do, I just have a scrap piece of the same tubing, put it in the cope that I just cut, and then when you look down, let's see, I didn't tighten this. When I look down, I can line this thing up with the shaft of the drill. So that's all I do is I'll sit here and go until it's just right. And this is just for the camera. I'm hoping the camera picks this up. So that's all I do is and maybe it'd be better to have a little bit longer tube so I can line it all the way up there with just literally my eyeball to go, get it right about there. And that will be perfectly set with that. I've done it where I've measured, used, I don't know, calipers and protractors and everything, and nothing has gotten more accurate than just using the old eyeball. I swear by it. So I'm gonna get this in here, get a longer tube, get it set up and get it cut, but that's how I do it. I use a lot of lube on here, and I'm kind of just tempering how much pressure I put on it. I think my hole saw is not the sharpest right now. When they got a brand new one, it'll go through here like butter. But the other thing you gotta be careful with is, you're cutting steel on steel, so if that thing grabs, it'll rip the drill out of your hand, about break your wrist. So I've got a really strong grip on the drill. And you need the bigger chuck drill, and these things got a lot of torque on them, so it will rip it out of your hand and about break your wrist. But right there, it tried to grab. Yeah, I need a new hole saw. This one's pretty dull. Goes grabby towards the end. Just busting out the other side. I don't want to do this entire roll cage with this crappy hole saw. There we go. All right, so like I said, I'm going to hit this up with the grinder, and if my madness proves itself to be true, it looks pretty good. But that's how I do it with the lining up. I need to give myself a better hole saw, but there's part one of the cross part of the roll cage. I just thought of another time that it would be helpful to have another set of hands, and that is putting the stinking roll cage together. It's just too big for one person to wrap their arms around it and clamp it and everything else, so you kind of got to get creative. And I know this looks like an abomination, but this is what I got going. Here's the first tube that I tacked the centerpiece to. I found the angle, got that. That was pretty simple. I did that on the bench top. So now it's time to put the second hoop in here, and this is tacked together so everything is floppy. I don't have a big enough bench over here to like tack weld some braces and clamp it to, so you get creative. So I anchored the rear hoop to the boat so it can't move. I got it kind of set at the angle that I need, and then I just used some straps to let the slack out until I got this right angle that I need. And I also, the rules, we only are required to have a center bar in there. We're not required to have bars on the outside because we put a capping plate over this radius. So I cut some temporary wood blocks that are the exact same to keep this thing all square. So this thing is ready to tack. And then, grant you, I'm gonna have two big floppy bars at that, held together by 8 tacks and a little center piece. So I think I'm gonna be very gentle, try to get this thing flipped upright, and then I'm gonna start working on the capping plates, get those cut, trimmed, and in place, so then that will hold everything in shape. Probably gonna get a lot of negative feedback on this on the way I do my roll cage, and people say, you can't build a roll cage like that, your life depends on it, blah, 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 but literally, I've been doing this for 12 years, and it works for me. So I know it's kind of rednecky, but literally, to get these capping plates, well, these are my old Ron Fellows driving school. Just need some construction paper, wrap that around, trace it out, cut out, get my shape. I had this bent a while back down at Can-Am Fabrication in Marysville, same place that does my boat bottoms for me. And put it on, how did it go? Put it on, trace it out, did 2 of them. I drew a center line, marked my marks there, so then I just flip it over and I know I got an exact same spot on this bent piece. And lo and behold, it matches pretty much the ones that I cut out from the 146 roll cage. So now I'm just gonna cut this out with literally a whiz wheel, clean up the edges, put it up there, tack it in, and that's gonna give me some nice strength that I'm gonna be able to move this roll cage around. So I'm gonna get to cutting and we'll get these cap plates tacked on. Made some pretty good progress. The roll cage, those are kind of tough. Like I said, on a one-man show, it's tough because they're kind of just awkward. They're kind of floppy, they're long, just beyond the reach of your arm, so it's kind of frustrating, but I'm pretty happy with where we're at. We got the motor just kind of placed in there, the pump is in, and I've started to get a pretty good head start on the roll cage. So I couldn't stand it anymore. I literally couldn't stand it. I had to go in and get the carbon fiber upper sides off of the 146. Those are inside the house. And I'm like, hey, it's pretty much the same hole, really close. So I'm gonna throw those sides on there because it really does look weird without those uppers on. You don't really get a scale for what the actual shape of the boat. So I had the benefit of just running in the house, grabbing them and coming out here to take a look. So with that also being said, I got the main frame of the roll cage sitting in the boat, and I'm pretty happy with it. Like, it fits pretty darn good. There, I'll spin the phone around. I'm gonna surprise you with one last thing before we end this video of having those upper sides on in the roll cage, and I got a mocked up seam there. But I'll show you some things that I got to deal with. That this is the really kind of, you gotta go slow because you gotta get the fit right. You gotta be comfortable in the boat, and you can't compromise the center of gravity. And that's the tough part, and that's one of the big issues that I'm dealing with. So without further ado, I'm gonna spin around, and you can kind of see how this thing looks with the upper side on it. So this is the actual, I think I might make the sides a little bit taller than this, but you can kind of start to see what this thing is going to look like. I pulled the stacks out, so this will be a little bit taller. Now, and you can start to see the general shape of the roll cage. I can still, this was all actually going to get cut out quite a ways up here, so this roll cage could actually come quite a bit further forward, but I don't really want it to. Like, that's about where I want to go. So one issue, so you get your bar that comes down here, and then you get a cross piece that goes across that. That's what your harnesses attached to, your shoulder harnesses. They typically go right up against the valve covers or the cylinder head back here, but this MSD is right in the way. However, I actually think that I can sneak it through there just fine, and then what you'll have to do, you'll have to like have the engine in and then lower the cage in over it. I think that's gonna work just fine, but I'm leaning towards that. I haven't made a final decision, and I'm also, just because I'm like, the more, if the bar was all the way up here, now that's about where my seat would be from that position, and that's too far forward. Just looking at it, like, I don't want it to be any more further forward than that. So these are issues I'm dealing with. The cage right now is just tacked together. This is the first time I've actually put the capping plates on, and I really like that because it gives it some rigidity and strength when I'm using it to mock things up. So making some progress. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm gonna sign out. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of the progress. And I got a ton of comments so far on the Velocity Stack color and the name of the boat. Bean is not fond of changing or giving the boat a name. She wants to stick with 907. Let me know what you think. I'm kind of really torn about it, but I'm gonna sign out, get this video uploaded. Enjoy your weekend.